Hole.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Welcome to Conversations with Barbara. I'm Barbara Canelopoulos, and with me today is our Onjalé Scott Price, who viewers will remember was a member of our school board, and also Dr. Ambrose Jearld, who was for many years a marine biologist with NOAA in Woods Hole. And I'm going to turn to each of you to let our viewers know what your current situation is, what your goings and comings are today. So we'll start with you, Onjalé.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for having us today. We appreciate your time and the opportunity to talk to the community about what we've got going on. So I served on the Falmouth Select Board for one term, and I'm still a town meeting member, which I'm very proud of.
Good.
And I'm currently the Chief Operating Officer at Mizar Imaging. We are a small microscope company that's based in Woods Hole. And I'm also a trustee for Sea Education Association.
Good. And Dr. Jearld?
I'm retired. I retired from NOAA in 2016. And as I say to friends, I'm still trying not to flunk retirement. I seem to be quite busy, active in community endeavors in my parish here, local parish, St. Barnabas. And I've been active with the Woods Hole scientific community in one capacity or another. And then I'm a past president of the National Technical Association. So I've been active with that organization, as well as American Fisheries Society, etc. Yeah.
So it sounds very good. And in regard to a healthy aging, I would suggest that people follow your example and flunk retirement. But you know, we are here today, and I think about our conversation as a kind of requiem for a program that was full of richness, and it's important for us to talk about what is being lost in this program that has been defunded. It's the Partnership Education Program that both of you were quite involved with. And so let's talk about what that meant and what it accomplished. And we'll start with you, perhaps. Well, maybe we should start with Dr. Jearld, who was one of the originators.
Yes. Yes, the Woods Hole Partnership Education Program is a program under the umbrella of the Woods Hole Diversity Initiative. And that initiative was started back in 2005, and by the an agreement or a partnership agreed upon under a memorandum of understanding that was led by one of the CEOs or leaders of one of the institutions, or John Bullard. And then over the time after the formation, it took about 5 years to come to something that we thought was tangible and spoke to what the 6 institutions had come together to do that they could not do alone, or no one institution could do alone. And that was to look at how could they make Woods Hole more welcoming. How could they change the complexion of Woods Hole in many ways to where it was representative of individuals from populations that may not have had a beaten path to Woods Hole. And so we came up with the Woods Hole Partnership Education Program, a 10-week place-based program that brought students from across the U.S. and its territories, and they had to be a U.S. citizen, to have a 10-week rich experience at one of the 6 scientific institutions. And we brought a partner in with us also, the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, which is a historically black college and university, because that was part of what we were trying to do. In addition to bring students here, who may not have been from institutions or populations that have a beaten path to Woods Hole where big science takes place. We also wanted to formate or fortify connections, relationships, and networks with the faculty and the staffs and administrators at minority-serving institutions as well. But we also had students from Harvard, from Cornell, you name it, and the smaller, well-heeled institutions, as well as Bridgewater State and Cape Cod Community College. And Angie, I think you should jump in. I'm sorry.
Well, that was 2009 when the first program.
First cohort of students.
2009.
Yes. So do you recall, you became involved in a few years later?
Yes, so I met Dr. Jearld when I was in college. He was a mentor of mine, 20 years ago now. Wow, we're coming up on 20 years. And he invited me to come to Woods Hole to work on his program, and I initially thought, well, that sounds cold and miserable, but sure, I'll come up for one summer. And that was summer of 2011, and I absolutely fell in love with Woods Hole, with Falmouth, with the program, everything. And so I continued to come back every summer until 2015, in which time I went to University of Maryland Eastern Shore, PEP's academic partner, and worked there for a couple years. So then I was on the other side of PEP, working on some of the administrative stuff there and trying to recruit for students and whatnot. And then was able to come back up here full-time in 2018 and get more involved in the program, eventually being co-director and then becoming director of the program the last couple years. So I've seen the evolution of the program. As Dr. Jearld said, it was originally the 6 institutions in Woods Hole, so that's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, the United States Geological Survey, Sea Education Association, the Marine Biological Laboratory, the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, and Woodwell Climate Research Center. So those institutions here in Woods Hole would host the students here and have their experience, and the students would receive credit through the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. So while they were here doing their research, they also took a class. And that was really one of the enriching experiences that the students had. It was not just research, but they were able to use their research to gain course credit and be able to have upper level course credits that they could take back to their home institution.
A real introduction to science and really doing science.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I gather that these various organizations were quite enthusiastic about partnering.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Every year what we would do is ask the potential mentors. So we'd reach out to the scientists in the community and say, would you like to host a PEP student this summer? And if so, just give us a brief description of what that project would look like. And every year we have more mentors than we have students. Last year we had twice as many mentors than we had students for, and we had to make difficult decisions on which mentors we were going to place with students based on a plethora of different things, but based on student interests and things like that.
But it's so important that it was so popular, so well received, so enthusiastically received.
Yes, very much so.
Yes, so. And do you recall some of the students that
Sure.
I do, but I have to admit, after this would have been the 16th cohort this year, after 15, the students start to mesh as to what cohort they would have been part of.
Yeah.
But going back to the very first cohort, I think of people like Victoria Morgan,
Oh, yes.
who's in a postdoctoral program. She'd come to us, for example, from Cornell University, and we positioned the program to be for rising juniors and seniors. But then there were always exceptions. And she came to us after having finished the first year. And so obviously we were concerned whether that she would adjust, and we were looking at her age, maybe maturity, and et cetera. But it was a breeze for her. And not just a breeze, but she fit in so well in the terms of age wasn't a problem, but she was just exceedingly bright, you see, and but also just a wonderful person. And in that cohort, there was Zach, and I'm thinking the two
Was
young,
Christina also in that cohort?
Christina,
Lovely? She
yes, a local young
yep,
woman.
local,
Yeah,
works for
she
the town
and
of Falmouth
Stephanie
now.
Hayes,
Right.
they were both local. Yeah, she works for the town of
Yeah,
Falmouth.
yeah.
So yes, I remember students and
Any
one young
student-
man who had come from Arkansas, two of them, and had never seen a sound or the ocean or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
You know,
that
yeah,
must have been exciting, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And you had said from United States and elsewhere, so
And its
how far
territories.
away were some students?
We had a young woman from Guam.
Guam,
A couple years
yes.
ago.
Guam,
Yep, University of Guam. Yeah, it took her several days to get here.
In the Marshall Islands,
And we've had a student from the Marshall Islands as
yeah.
well, who,
Eyes.
yeah.
Alaska.
Apart from the science, think of the cultural richness
Oh,
of
absolutely.
students
Yes,
meeting each other
Yeah.
and coming from Arkansas, seeing Massachusetts. I mean, this is just magic.
Well, that was
Now,
one of
and
the.
how about
I'm
you
sorry.
with students that you met?
Oh, yeah. So since I've been involved for 14 years now, the years that the students participated definitely blurs. But I met my husband as he was a PEP student in
Yeah.
2012, and now
Oh.
we both live here. He is a federal employee at NOAA down in Woods Hole. He actually originally did his PEP internship at Huey, and then came back and did a C semester, and came back and did another Huey summer program, and just kept coming back. So obviously he's my favorite alumni.
Of course.
But we joke that we're a full service program. So Dr. Jearld was the what is the word? He married a couple from PEP.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
yes,
really?
Yes. Well, it was one of the James.
James, yep.
James was got in touch with me and said that he would like me to marry he and Erin, and so I went out to Minnesota, and yes, Minnesota.
Yeah.
And so I got my license, so I can, yeah.
I had no idea when I thought about the riches. I mean, these are really, truly heartfelt success stories.
Yes.
Oh, in addition, like you said, in addition to the science, we have Kelly, who came to us having already received her undergraduate degree. She didn't know what she wanted to do. She came here for the summer, and her research mentor down at Huey kept her on for another year, helped her apply for graduate school. She went on, got her PhD. She now works for NASA JPL in California. So she's doing amazing science. So in addition to just having the experiences of bringing these students together from these different backgrounds and having a rich experience in the summer, they also go on to do amazing research for our community and also for our country.
Sometimes we forget that success in life and following something one loves to do really very often depends upon a mentor. And sometimes it happens just for people accidentally. I'm sure viewers feel that way. Oh, I might have done this had I had somebody encouraging me. I've had so many people in my own lifetime say, if I had had a mentor, maybe I would have taken that direction that I was afraid to go to. And so this provided these young people, not always young people, but with a direction,
Absolutely.
Encouragement,
And-
which is exactly what we
Indeed.
need.
Indeed. And the mentorship piece and the networking that we know
Oh,
is so
yes,
important
yes.
for people's careers. So it wasn't just that students were placed with research mentors to do research, but we also brought in scientists from other parts of the community to come in and talk about the different research they do
Yes,
and expose them to different opportunities. Sometimes to come back to Woods Hole, but sometimes opportunities elsewhere.
Sure.
And so a lot of what the students gained here outside of the research was the networking and the mentorship, which we
Yes,
know
yes.
is critically important.
And I think, too, what was important, and still is that we early on realized that it was important to vet mentors. I had worked with experiential programs before, and I taught school before, college, at the university level. And so often the situation was have someone apply for an opportunity, a workshop, so to say, or internship. And you come in and say, this is what you're to do, and so go after it. And then at the end of the experience, however many weeks, turn in a report. But we realized that many people who wanted to mentor, for example, had not had any mentoring experience or any training. So we thought it was very important that we implement training for the mentors.
Yes, good.
But in addition to providing, quality training for them, we also vetted them and wanted them. Anyone who was saying that they wanted to be part of this, wanted to mentor, we wanted to know, why do you want to mentor? What is it in your background that is something that maybe you want to pass forward? Who mentored you? Who threw you a line or told you what line to stand in at some time when maybe you didn't have all of everything just in place, but they gave you a chance? And then we were doing that because we were saying that the students that we are mentoring are likely students who have not had the rich experience that a lot of other students have in a high science environment like Woods Hole. And so, but they're coming here well recommended, well vetted, and with confidence. And so when they leave here, we would like them to leave with confidence. And one way we might think that would be is hopefully you will be able to write a strong letter of recommendation for that student so that they can go on to their next opportunity along their trace.
So it is the kind of program that it builds on itself.
Absolutely.
For the future, which is so remarkable.
Yes.
I read some things about your own background, and I believe that you had some experiences yourself when you were an undergraduate in facing racial bias. And so I think you came to this program knowing full well that maybe some of those students had been affected by that, their progress had been maybe limited by that. Am I right? Was there?
Quite right and correct. My background, I say I have a birthday coming up on Thursday, but when I graduated from college, the Civil Rights 64 had been passed a year before. So my schooling was under segregated conditions. I lived in North Carolina and Maryland, and so that was the lay of the land at that time. And then, so when I went off to college, issues that we dealt with was trying to get from my home in Annapolis, Maryland, to Princess Anne, Maryland, Eastern Shore, for example. Well, you had to figure out, do you have everything you need and not have to stop? And back then it was 2 lanes. We didn't have the dual highways. But if you did stop, if you had hitched a ride with someone else or their parents were getting them back to school and they picked you up, well, it was, can we stop and eat any place, So there was those kinds of things. And then on campus itself, it was very limited to what we could do outside of the perimeter of the campus. There simply were no restaurants or facilities that we could enjoy in leisure time. You could go up and use the laundromat. You could go to the drugstore, things like that. And if you did go to the Washington Hotel, for example, you had to go to the side door and be handed what you were ordering out a window. But our professors, our administrators, the spirit of the school was, we are preparing you to go out and submit an application to any job that you see that is applicable to you based on your major and your experience, as well as to any academic institution that you would like to seek graduate training or education from. And so that, to me, carries over in terms of, while we do not have de jure segregation, de facto segregation is still operative in many ways. And many of these young people are coming from inequitable access to education and education experiences.
We like to think that we've made great strides toward equity and inclusion, but now one wonders whether or not, when I talk about the loss of this rich program, I don't want to think about what this portends for the future. So there probably is an argument made for the institutions that worry about more defunding. Many of them in Woods Hole depend upon federal funding. What would you say about that counter-argument that these programs right now need to be shut down and one should move slowly because the future is really cloudy? Is that an answer?
I don't think it's the right answer. I would respectfully disagree that these programs should be shut down at all, but definitely not immediately. I think there's room for collaboration, there's room for thinking creatively. I think there's room for the appropriate civil disobedience. There's, as history tells us, if everyone just goes along with everything, we'd never make any progress. Right. If there weren't the Montgomery boycotts, if there weren't the sit-ins in the South, would we have the civil rights that we know and appreciate today? And so I think the question is, when we think about history repeating itself in some ways, and maybe not repeating itself in other ways, what part of history do we want to be a part of? What do we want to be able to say that we stood up against? And I think for these institutions that are concerned about funding, sure, I think that's very valid. But there is money out there that's not just federal money. There are billionaires and millionaires who want to be on the right side of history. Yes. And there are opportunities to tap into those resources.
Private
Exactly. So for our federal partners, I recognize that they're in a different position than our private institutions. I think the private institutions could think creatively, but I think part of that is having a table that everyone feels that they could be part of the conversation.
Yes. You mentioned civil disobedience, and I'm a retired school teacher. Our school books are full of praise for Henry David Thoreau and his civil disobedience. Mm-hmm. He refused to pay his income tax. Mm-hmm. And we think of that as a noble right. effort.
Right.
Yeah. Wouldn't we hope that we'll be brave enough to be civilly disobedient?
We can hope.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I certainly think so. And I think of Martin Luther King, and a law that is unjust is worth expressing your civil disobedience to correct. And what I would say is looking at there are other ways or paths to take to hold on to programs, pipeline programs like PEP. And you need leadership that has the acumen to do that in the face of draconian cuts or these devastating possibilities or existential threats. However, the way I look at it is just to willy-nilly, shilly-shally throw out the baby with, you do not even know what the bath is. That's squandering. And for us, we're talking about 20-some years that we have been building a new Woods Hole, a new scientific community with appreciation and respect for the other. And here we are saying that students who would be part of a cohort of PEP are expendable. You can just throw them on the wagon and let the wagon go, you see. And, oh, we'll get back to it and we'll figure out now. You've squandered all of that investment, human and fiscal, you see, and decency from my point of view. And what I think is unconscionable, and I'm livid about, is the fact that as a founder of the program, as one of the founding members of the Diversity Initiative, I was not included in a single conversation about where do we go from here, you see, and what can we do, or what are some alternatives. You know, we immediately, once we saw that the federal partners, you know, were doing what they had to do in response to the executive order, and we said, okay, but we cannot just sit here. We need to think of what are stopgap measures that we can take that can help us not lose everything that we have done now. And so we were looking forward to go with whatever modicum, how tacit there is, that would be there where the institutions would give us the space to keep a thread even of this going, as opposed to just eliminating it.
That conversation never happened.
It did not happen.
It did not happen with us.
Not with us.
That is too bad. You know, we began the program and I thought of it as a requiem, but I want to end on a more uplifting note. I think it is so, you must be so proud of what you did those years and what you have accomplished. It still, it worked, and it's probably fulfilling its mission. Your students are going off and doing good things for the world in both science and in other areas, and are themselves mentoring others. So all of that effort, it's not lost. And let us just hope that there will be some way that we can then, it can be reinstated and continue. So I would imagine we have to end on a hopeful note.
I think in some ways we are hopeful. We're hopeful that there are enough people in the community, within our networks, our alumni, our mentors, who will help us think of something.
Okay.
Help us move forward in some way.
Good.
Yeah, we stand, I think, for equitable access to high quality science for all Americans.
Good.
And we know too that we have a lot of friends that invested in this and still wish to be invested and help us find a way forward.
Good.
And so we will continue to press it forward and demand that we have to make sure that there's access for all Americans to a high performing big science sphere like the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. And I say that because the very people who are identified as DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, they're not illegal. They pay taxes, and they deserve fair representation, and their tax dollars should be viewed to support people from their affinity, communities, populations, or whatever, that help to make up this great America. So we want to make sure there is equitable access for all Americans, and we cannot leave it to the institutions to revert back to old world tactics and spaces where people, brown and black people, are not present.
Well, then, and I wish you well in that mission and with that hope. And I want to thank you so much for being here and for sharing this important information so that our viewers can understand what is at stake when these programs lose their funding. So thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
for
you,
having
Barbara.
us.
Thank you.
And viewers, thank you very much for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you next time on Conversations with Barbara.